are going to be triggered, and it could mean major cutbacks in the Pentagon budget. Joining us now to talk about that possibility, Florida Republican Congressman Allen West, who served for more than 20 years in the U.S. Army. Congressman, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Shannon, and happy Thanksgiving to you.
And to you and your family and loved ones as well. Let's talk about the fact that the Pentagon is already facing some $450 billion in cuts. If we get to the sequestration issue, if the super committee doesn't find a deal, they're talking about at least that much again. How concerned are you?
I'm very concerned. As a matter of fact, you're talking about another $500 to $600 billion over the next 10 years of cuts. As a matter of fact, in personnel, you're talking about an Army that will go from 549,000 to about 425, a Marine Corps that will go from 202,000 to about 145, the lowest level that the Marine Corps has been in quite some time. But when you look at our combat formations, maneuver battalions in the Army will go from 100 down to 60 or 70. You look at fighter aircraft in the Air Force will go from about 1,990 to about 1,500. And you look at the naval war vessels going from about 288 to 238. And when you look at the trouble spots all over the world, now is not the time for us to do this to our military, which is what we've heard Secretary of Defense Panetta, Chairman of Joint Chiefs General Dempsey, and all the service chiefs and the Commandant of the Marine Corps testified before the House Armed Services Committee and say that these cuts will be unacceptable.
You mentioned Secretary Panetta. I want to bring up a couple of others who have also tried to point out the danger of going down this path. Representative Buck McKeon, one of your colleagues there in the House who heads up the Armed Services Committee, wrote a letter to the co-chairs of the super committee saying this, quote, if sequestration were to occur, the impact on our national security, our men and women in uniform, and the Department of Defense would be immediate, dire, and in some cases irrevocable. You mentioned Secretary Panetta. He also sent a letter out to Senators Graham and McCain saying, unfortunately, while large cuts are being imposed, the threats to national security would not be reduced. And all of this discussion takes me back to Navy Admiral Mike Mullen when he was the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who said that our net is actually the biggest threat to our national security. Yes. So why can't those on Capitol Hill get it together with that in mind?
Well, I think that those on Capitol Hill should have had the experiences that I had of 22 years being in the United States military and living through the times when we saw the incredible cuts to the defense budget under the Clinton administration when we didn't have enough spare parts, gasoline, or even ammunition to go out and properly train. I remember being an executive officer of a battalion and having to budget for toilet paper in barracks. When I went to Iraq in 2003, we didn't have enough body armor. We didn't even have Humvees on doors on the Humvees to include mine. So I think that, you know, if we had people that had been on this 21st century battlefield in Iraq or Afghanistan, maybe they would do their job. But unfortunately, you do have some people on the other side of the aisle who think, much so as Paul Krugman wrote, just let the nothing happen and the sequestration kick in, because there are those people that think that the military families and our veterans should be the bill payers for the fiscal irresponsibility in Washington, D.C.
Congressman West, we always appreciate your time, and thank you for your service to this country in the military as well.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. The FBI